When I first started this podcast about 3.5 years ago, I had no idea what a digital nomad was. Since then, I've discovered this fascinating community of people who travel full-time while working remotely from all over the world. My guest today, Ryan Mellon, is not only a digital nomad himself, but also a coach who helps others navigate the path to this unconventional lifestyle. Through his coaching services, Ryan guides aspiring digital nomads on how to build a sustainable, location-independent career. Today, Ryan will share his own adventures and insights from life on the road, offering a glimpse into the world of digital nomadism and the freedom and challenges it brings. So sit back and enjoy Ryan Mellon's incredible journey. Welcome to Journey with Jake. This is a podcast about adventure and how through our adventures we can overcome the challenges of life that come our way. While I expect you will learn some things about different adventures, this show will entertain you. Each episode will feature a different guest or guests as they share experiences and stories from the different adventures they have been on. Not only will you be entertained, but you will also hear the failures and trials each guest faces and what they have done or are doing to overcome the hardships that come their way. My goal is to take each of us on a journey through the experiences of my guests with the hope that you'll be entertained and inspired to overcome your day-to-day challenges. After all, it's not all about the destination as it is about the journey. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. My name is Jake Bushman, and I'm the host of Journey with Jake. Today, I had the privilege of speaking with digital nomad coach Ryan Mellon. Fun fact, in the middle of our conversation, we actually lost connection for about 10 minutes. Thankfully, the magic of editing means you won't even notice it happened, but it's a reminder of the reality of chatting with someone who's literally a world away. In Ryan's case, all the way in Bali. Before we dive into my conversation with Ryan, I want to mention that Journey with Jake is part of the Podmatch Podcast Network. If you're looking for some great podcasts across topics like business, comedy, self-improvement, you name it, check out podmatch.com/network. You're bound to find something that piques your interest. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the show wherever you listen to your podcasts so you never miss an episode. And hey, if you're curious about what I look like or want to see my guests, we're also on YouTube. Just search for Journey with Jake Podcast and you'll find us. I also love hearing from listeners. So be sure to follow me on Instagram at Journey with Jake Podcast. Drop by, say hi, share your favorite episode, and let me know if there's someone you'd like to hear on the show. Maybe it's you. I'm truly grateful I had the chance to speak with Ryan. His journey from grinding through long work hours to embracing life as a digital nomad is inspiring. If you enjoy this episode, I think you'll also love episode 40 with Jackie Carbo, where she shares her experiences pursuing travel and remote work. All right, let's jump into my conversation with Ryan Mellon. All right, well, I am excited today. I've got Ryan, is it Mellon? Did I say it right? Ryan Mellon. Ryan Mellon, welcome to Journey with Jake.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here today.
And I know we're a little bit far apart from each other right now, I believe. I think you're in Bali, you're in Indonesia, and I'm here in Utah. So a little bit of distance between us. What time is it? I mean, I'm recording it at night here. It's 6 o'clock here. What time is it there in Bali?
So I'm recording from the future. It's Friday at 9 a.m.
Friday, 9 a.m. So yeah, this is awesome. I got the future talking to the present, I guess. So
I can
that's
give
fantastic.
you some lotto numbers at the end once we stop recording.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Ryan. I love that.
Yeah, no
So
problem.
like I always do on the show, I want to know a little bit about who you are. I know you're considered the digital nomad coach. We're going to talk about that. Before we dive into all that though, yeah, tell me a little bit about Ryan, kind of where you're from, that sort of thing.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm from Virginia, and about 7 years ago, I was working two jobs, 9 to 5, in the restaurant business as a maintenance manager, fixing deep fryers during the day, and then I went to UPS in the warehouse at night in the evening. So I was working about 14 hours a day, 6 days a week, and I did that for over 10 years. Yeah. It was a little bit grueling. And so I was reading some books like 4 Hour Workweek and Vagabonding by Rolf Potts and listening to travel bloggers. And I really started getting excited about getting out and seeing the world. So I booked a flight to Costa Rica. I was able to manage to get 2 weeks off from both my jobs at the same time, which took a ton of negotiation. And I flew to Costa Rica by myself and did my very first solo travel trip. I didn't speak any of the language. I had no plan. I just flew into San Jose, had a place booked for the first night, first couple nights, and that's it. And then I figured it out from there. And it was an amazing journey those 2 weeks. I ended up meeting tons of cool people from all over the world. Some of them were traveling for like months and years on end, which I didn't even realize was a thing. And yeah, I ended up on both coasts of Costa Rica, in the jungle, ziplining through the jungle, climbing volcanoes, swimming in their crater lake. And so, like, it was just a really eye-opening experience, especially to be able to do it alone and meet friends and make friends while I was there. And then just having such a great experience. When I came back to both my jobs, I was not like refreshed to go back to work. Like I just had this great vacation. I was like, really like, wow, what I'm doing now is not sustainable. I hate it. And like, I want out as soon as possible. So I told both of my jobs, I was like, give me 1 year and I'm out of here. Like, and they thought I was just joking, to be honest. But that's pretty much what happened. It was a little bit more than a year. So I went back to both my jobs. I was hanging out, having some drinks with my best friend and his wife one night, and they were like, when we retire, we really want to take a road trip of the U.S. and see the states and just take our time. And I'm like, let's do this now. Like, I'm coming off this high of going to Costa Rica and stuff. I'm like, let's figure this out and do it now while we're young. Like, why not? So I convinced them to quit their jobs and I quit both my jobs. We did save up like enough money. The game plan was for us to like just save, to have enough money to get us through that year road trip. And so we did that and we quit our jobs and we hit the road October of 2017. And we hopped in an RV and we did 23 states over that 1 year. And it was just an amazing adventure. But halfway through the year, I realized it was really coming to an end quite quickly. So I was like, man, I'm gonna have to go back to both my jobs or figure something new out when we get home. And like, I don't want to do that. Like what we're doing now, like traveling is just awesome. So I had got my real estate license previously. So I had my 2 jobs and I had started dabbling in real estate. So I called up a good friend of mine who was a real estate investor who was doing a lot of volume of properties, like flipping houses, buying rentals, stuff like that. I said, is there any way I can help you while I'm on this road trip, while I'm out of state, find deals? And she's like, absolutely. And during this time, we had a lot of foreclosures on the market. So we just really started targeting buying those up. And so between me and partnering with another agent in my office who could be the boots on the ground, I was the guy like just blasting out contracts on like 10 houses a week. And we ended up doing like 20 to 25 deals in those last 6 months of my road trip. And that's when I realized like, oh wow, like I don't have to go back to my jobs. Like I'm making money and traveling. So that was kind of the epiphany for me. That road trip ended. My friends went back to work and I stayed home for just a couple months. And then I got on a plane and flew to New Zealand and I did 8 countries in 6 months, all while working. And that was really the beginning of me being a digital nomad. Since then, I've been working and running my businesses from 23 US states and 22 countries. I usually travel every winter and I'm home in the summer. So I call myself a hybrid nomad.
Hybrid nomad. So is home still Virginia when you're home?
Yeah, so home is still Virginia. I'm home in the summer times. I live on my sailboat. It's a good time to be home. The weather's great and it's just great time to be on the boat.
Wow. Okay. So you live on the boat in the summer then?
It's my home base. And it's a
Wow.
it's a 1 bedroom apartment on the water and it doesn't cost me too much. It keeps my costs down and I'm not going out and buying big screen TVs and new couches because I have nowhere to put it. So it really does help keep my costs down while I'm gone. So right now the boats, because it's Virginia, we don't have to pull the boats out of the water in the winter. It doesn't get that cold. So
Oh, nice.
it stays in its slip all winter. And so My costs, because I was able to pay for the boat that I have in cash, my costs are just my slip fee, a tiny bit of electric that's not being used, and insurance while I'm gone. So it's not too, I don't have this huge mortgage or anything like that, which really helps me to be able to just hop away. Yeah.
Wow, yeah, that's nice. It's like you're in that nomad frame of mind, even when you're staying on the boat in the summer. You still kind of, you're able to hop away quickly if you need to. That's a good thing.
Yeah, yeah. I have friends that come up from the Bahamas in the summertime to get away from hurricane season. So we have a good group of people at the marina to hang out with, and we do weekend trips to like the Eastern Shore and go anchor out and do a little traveling on the boats too. So yeah, I love it.
Wow. All right, let's go back to your childhood for a minute.
Okay.
Virginia, you're born and raised Virginia? Is that kind of
Born in Pennsylvania till I was
okay?
8. So
Okay.
I consider myself born and raised in Virginia since I was there since I
Yeah.
was 8.
Any siblings or anything like that?
Yeah, so I have 2 sisters and 1 brother. I'm the
Okay.
youngest.
You're the baby. All right. It's the
Yeah.
baby of the family. Very good. Now, when you were a kid growing up, did you do any kind of traveling as a family, or is traveling kind of out of the realm for you?
It was minimal, very minimal. Yeah, when I was a teenager, my mom started taking me to a few places. We went to Arizona, Florida, stuff like that. So I got to see a little bit of some places, but nothing international.
Okay. So yeah, didn't have any of the international flair at all.
No, no, but I did get to see a couple of cool places in the States, but we didn't travel a lot as a kid. So like I feel like now I'm really getting it all out of my system.
For sure. All right. Let's go back to the work, because 2 jobs, that's a lot of hours. I mean, you're doing the 9 to 5, which that's work enough, right? And then you're working at UPS in the evening. You said 6 days a week for 10 years you were doing this?
Yeah, yeah, 14 hours a day. Yeah, it was a lot. And then Sunday was my only day off. The restaurant I worked at, I was working fast food like Chick-fil-A. So they were closed on Sunday. So that was my only day off. And yeah, it was um, me just, keeping that place running, fixing ice cream machines and deep fryers and just, doing that during the day and helping out running, bringing up customers and running the drive through, all that stuff. And then warehouse work at night. So yeah, it was a lot.
Wow. Yeah, that's an intense schedule. When you got those 2 weeks off, and that sounds like you said you got to do a little bit of negotiation. You had to kind of like, work it to make it happen. So you're
Sure.
like, okay, UPS, I can get them off. I can get off with the fast food, working that. And you did it. Did you have any idea at the time what this was going to do for you?
Absolutely not. No, like I was a little scared, right? Like hopping on a plane by myself, going somewhere I'd never been and I don't speak the language. Like it's a big jump, but I think I did a lot of preparation and the fact that I read a lot about solo travel. Nomadic Matt is a big blogger still that I read a lot. And then reading 4 Hour Work Week and Vagabonding really were like, I've got to just try it. And if it all goes to shit, I can come back and just go back to my jobs. But yeah, I never expected it to be a life-changing situation.
So you would kind of prep yourself with like nomadic mat and vagabonding, different things like that. Why Costa Rica? Why did you choose that location?
So Costa Rica, I chose Costa Rica because it's well known as one of the more safe places in Central America. Also, I just like beaches and those tropical vibes. So it was like wintertime. I hate the cold, even though I live in Virginia. Most people might not consider that cold. But if it's below 75, it's too cold for me. So getting away to somewhere warmer in the winter was also a huge bonus. And it's a small country, right? So it's pretty easy to get around and see a lot in 2 weeks. So I think that was one of the biggest things that led me to Costa Rica.
And you said what'd you say? You had like 2 nights is all, like you had your first 2 nights set up and then that was it.
Yeah,
What did that
yeah,
do for you? Your confidence and stuff, being able to like, hey, I can make this happen without having a
sure.
set plan.
So It just came back to all the pros that I've been reading online that said, having no plan and just going by yourself. And back then I was staying in hostels. Okay. So that was also a new experience for me. This was like my very first hostel experience. And that changed everything for me because now you're in a place with a bunch of other solo travelers. We're all in the same boat. And it's really an excerpt for making new friends and meeting new people. And also, what was good about it was it was near the airport and I was staying 2 nights. So you had a lot of people that just arrived, but you had a lot of people that have done the whole country and now they're flying home. So I was able to just talk with them over drinks in the evenings by the pool, like you're leaving, where are you going? But more importantly, like tell me your top 5 things you've just done here in Costa Rica. And several things kept coming up, places and things to do. And then from there, that's when I just started like, okay, this is my next destination and just kind of picking it out on the map and going. Because if you have everything planned out, there's no room for like serendipity, right? Or like just new experiences and meeting someone and being like, if we really get along, they're going here, I can go here with them, So like having no plan is really how I've been traveling ever since. Like I always plan at least my hotel or, now I'm in like a villa in Bali and I stay in long-term places. I'm not in hostels anymore. I think I've aged myself out of that, but there's still plenty of ways to meet people even when you're staying in hotels or Airbnbs or apartments.
When you got there to Costa Rica, and I know I'm kind of harping on Costa Rica here for a minute, but it's just because it's just so amazing to me that, you've been just hustling for 10 years, just working hard, got yourself the 2 weeks. You're like, this is for me. I'm doing this for me, doing it for Ryan. Were you ever scared? I mean, were you like, when you fly in there, were you like, what am I doing? I mean, did you ever have any second thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, definitely on the way there, it was like it was a little bit scary. I think I arrived at night and like I hate arriving at night in foreign countries, especially when I don't speak the language. I speak a little bit of Spanish now and get around Spanish now, but I couldn't then. And like I just remember being like, because I only do carry-ons, I was like the first one off the plane out the doors at the airport, and I just got like hit with the people that are like all ready to take you, trying to take you to your hotel and stuff. And like just being overwhelmed with that. And like, you always worry about like getting in the wrong vehicle with the wrong person. But I did my research on like the proper transportation to take and stuff. And so it is a little bit scary. So you need to think ahead on some of those things. But as soon as I started meeting people in the hostel and seeing other people there that were also traveling solo, you just start to build that confidence day by day.
Kind of want to touch on the whole hostel situation for a
Sure.
second, and just thinking about your years that you've been doing this now.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's a pretty neat community then. I mean, it sounds like people are, there's other solo people, things like that. So it sounds like there's a little bit of community there.
Sure. I can explain just a little bit about hostels and like
Yeah,
what it is for
perfect.
like a lot of people that don't know, and for a lot of people that have just seen the movie and they're like no way, because the movie's kind of like a horror movie, right? So
Chopping
I
people up and whatever.
Yeah, it's not great. I never seen it. I've heard about it and I won't watch it. But I've stayed in over 100 hostels. So when I was beginning, I was younger and I didn't have a lot of money. So hostels are very inexpensive. And so you have like dorm rooms where you sleep, just bunk bed situation with other folks that are traveling as well. The great thing about hostels is, and they also most have private rooms as well. So you have the options. And then also times you'll have like guys' rooms and girls' rooms. So like for solo female travelers, some might be more comfortable in an all girls room. So there is a sense of community. There's lots of, you have the room, but you only literally keep your stuff there and you sleep there. The rest of the place is like pool, restaurant, bar, like open areas outdoors. So it's a lot of co-mingling space. So really you're hanging out in those spaces and you're only going to the room to sleep and that's it. So it's not like, a lot of people think of sharing a room with some strangers. It's like, oh no, it'd be terrible, but you're never in there. You're just sleeping. So a lot of places have pool tables and game, foosball tables, and most of them have pools in these areas. So there's just a lot of area to meet other people and commingle, and it's a lot of backpackers, and it's a younger crowd for sure. Definitely the 20s crowd, 20s, mid-20s. And some of the hostels you need to filter through, right? Some of these are like just straight party hostels. And that's all that's happening. And you're not going to get as much sleep. So if you're into that and you're younger, that's fine. But as you get older, you might not, you kind of tend to be like, all right, I like actually need to get some sleep if I want to go zip lining tomorrow or do this or whatever. I can't party every night of the week. So you need to start choosing your hostels wisely. I've up until, even last year in Denmark, I stayed in a hostel, and there's some really classy hostels, and it can really reduce your expenses. You can also get private rooms in hostels now too, with ensuite baths and stuff like that. And if you're a solo traveler, it's still a great place to meet people. And so now I've moved on to more like long-term stays. Like I have this villa here for a month. It's an Airbnb, and I have a little, because I'm working and having calls and stuff like that. It's just a little bit better environment for me now that I'm in my late 30s too as well.
Gotcha. A little bit older now, kind of like you said, aging yourself out of the hostel scene a little
Yeah.
bit, maybe for
Yeah,
you at
yeah, I
least.
think so. It
I would
happens.
imagine though, with over 100 hostels, you've been to over 100 of them, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing you still have friends that you've met years and years ago
Absolutely.
that from hostels that you're still friends with today.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I mentioned that Denmark trip last year. That those guys I met a couple friends in the hostel. They're Danish, so I went to visit them in their home country on my way home from Greece, just on a whim. And yeah, you meet a lot of cool people. I had my friend from Germany fly into the States twice already to hang out. And we met in the basement of a hostel in Australia on like pizza and 50-cent beer night, many years ago before COVID. So yeah, you do make friends that you keep around and keep in touch with on Facebook. And I have traveled with them and met up with them since then and gone to their home countries and vice versa. So yeah, you do make some lasting friendships from staying in a hostel.
So it's amazing to me. You did this 2-week trip and it sounds like it changed you because you came back to the 14-hour days, the 6 days a week type of thing. And you're like, I'm just a year. That's all I can do. I'm going to do a year, save up some money. Were you just itching to get out of there? I mean, was it tough to get through
It
the
was
year?
Yeah, painful, super painful. And then once I had my friends committed to the road trip, like it was all hands on deck. Like we all cut out like going out for drinks and fat and eating out and everything. Like we just got focused in on like this goal. I made us set a date. Like we're gonna leave, right in fall. We're gonna go south to Florida to the Keys, and we're gonna try and stay south all winter. So we're in the warmest part as we progress through the winter. And that worked out pretty good. Like we had Thanksgiving in Key West on the RV, like the ocean, like 100 feet away. And yeah, it was once we had that date to leave, I was just so focused on just getting my savings to where it needed to be so that I didn't have to work for a year. And like it's so surprising how quickly you can cut out just like so many things that are not important to make that happen. And one thing I will say is like we both owned houses at that time. We had cars, so we had to figure that stuff out. And we ended up renting our houses out. And that house that I ran out, my very first house that I bought, I've never lived there since. So I rented it out for that trip, and I've not been back. And that's been like almost 8 years, I guess. 7, 8 years.
Are you still renting it out? You still own the house?
Yeah. I have a portfolio of rental properties now, and that's one of them. So I've transitioned through my real estate journey from doing just deals as an agent to becoming an investor. So yeah.
Dang. Okay, cool. See, this is what's
Yeah.
interesting because it's like, okay, here's this guy, Ryan, who's out there living the digital nomad life. And yeah, you started doing the whole working for this company. You had your real estate license. You started sending out contracts so you could stay on the road, which is cool. Because I think, like, what'd you say? 6 months in, you're like, this is going faster than I want it to.
Yeah.
So how do people do this? Because you're a coach. You coach people on being a digital nomad. If someone's out there saying, "Man, I want to do what Ryan's doing," How do you
Yeah,
do it? Get just the dirty short
sure.
version of it, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's three types of digital nomads, in my opinion. You have people that work a regular 9 to 5 for an employer that allows them to be remote. Or I even have people that, yeah, that allows them to be remote from home. And whether they discuss with their employer that their home is really at home in their state or in Mexico, that's kind of the decision that they need to make. And some people just fly under their radar and don't tell their employer, and it works. Some people ask. So you have the employees, then you have the freelancers that are usually like doing like they're virtual assistants or digital marketers or content creators. Those are probably like the top three that are pretty easy to get into on beginners level, entry level. And then you're doing freelance work like online through sites like Fiverr and Upwork, and you're taking on clients one at a time and working with different clients, right? And so you have the freelancers, and I would say that makes up probably about 70% of the digital nomad community is the freelancers. And then you have another good chunk that are entrepreneurs that own businesses, um, like me, that run their businesses from the road. So the best way to it really depends on like where you feel most comfortable in those three areas of starting to become a digital nomad. Like, do you just want to work a remote job and clock in and clock out during these hours and you have your free time? Or do you want to have a little bit more freedom as a freelancer, but you got to hustle to find those clients and keep them going? But your income is adjustable. Like, you have control of that. Like, if you're really good at what you do and you pump out a lot of clients and you create more value and you increase your prices, you can make more money. And then business owners, is also the same. It has the most responsibility, of course, but the sky's the limit on your income as well.
Okay, that makes sense then. So pretty much three different categories, like you said, to be a digital nomad. And you said what, 8 years now or so you've been doing this?
Yeah, just about 7, 8 years.
Do you see it ending anytime soon, or do you think no way? This is me now.
Yeah, no, I don't see it ending. Like I said, I'm a hybrid nomad, so I still have a home base, and not everyone does that. There's a lot of people that are just traveling for like indefinitely, and they have no home base other than just like friends and family at home, right? They don't have a house or apartment or anything like home base, which is nice in the sense that you have none of those expenses, right? So because I'm home 6 months a year at summertime when it's a good time to be home, I can still reconnect with friends and family. And also because I have a portfolio of rental properties, my leases don't expire until it gets to springtime. Technically, I should only have turnovers, and if I want to buy a new property and renovate it, I'm there for all of that. So it's kind of like my grind season for real estate is being home in the summertime. Then in the wintertime, it just goes to managing things because I do manage my properties personally, which it gets a lot quieter. And usually I don't have move out. And then I'm doing the coaching all year round, and the coaching can be done from anywhere. And that's basically just one-on-one coaching right now, helping people become digital nomads. But over the next 2 weeks, I'm actually shooting like a 5 to 10 hour video course of how to become a digital nomad, breaking down all the steps that people can buy the course. And it's going to reach a lot more people because it's a lot more affordable than my one-on-one coaching, of course, because it doesn't involve my time as much.
Sure.
And then once that's out, we'll have like option to upgrade to just a small monthly cost to do weekly calls, so we can do Q&As and kind of like group coaching for those people that have gone through the course. So that's kind of what I'm working on right now while I'm here in Bali.
So you've been doing it for a while, even before the pandemic. Does
Hmm.
it, since the pandemic, I mean, is it skyrocketed? Because that's kind of the vibe I get talking to other people, is that digital nomads have like really gone up since COVID.
Absolutely. One of the good things that came out of COVID is just the incredible amount of people that are allowed to work from home now. So that's a huge thing. And also people just getting the itch to get out and see the world, right? Everyone's locked up for 2 years. Like, life's short, like let's get out there. So yeah, the world has became so much more digital nomad friendly in so many ways. So that, as well as you're seeing a lot more like co-living and co-working spaces pop up. You have a lot of digital nomad hotspots, which are like places where lots of digital nomads group, and Bali is definitely one of them. Chiang Mai in Thailand is another one. Portugal, Buenos Aires, Mexico City. You've got a lot of these places, Medellin in Colombia, that are just like have this huge digital nomad community. So you have that support. You have the co-working spaces with the fast internet. You can go to a co-living space, which is kind of like it's almost like it's almost like a hostel in the sense that you're there with other strangers. You have your it's a older it's not as much of a younger crowd usually, but you have your own private everyone has their own private room. And sometimes these can be like in like mansions in the countryside that they've converted into like, with a bunch of rooms, and you have your own room and you're there with 10 other people, but you have a lot of community space and the internet's really good, and a lot you guys go down and kind of work your days together. Even though everyone's doing their own thing, you're working together. There's like group dinners and group outings and stuff like that. And also, you know, there's now 66 digital nomad visas out there now, 66 countries with digital nomad visas. New Zealand just added theirs last week. So it's a little bit shorter of a digital nomad visa than I'd like to see. They only give you 90 days. But there's no minimum income requirements that a lot of countries have. So in the past, we all kind of flew under the radar on tourist visas working remotely. But the problem with that is usually they're like 30 to 60-day visas. So you got to get extensions or you got to do a border run, which is to leave the country, come back,
Come
get a
back.
new stamp. So now that's taken out of the equation. So like right now I'm here in Bali on a 1-year digital nomad visa that I'm technically a resident and I can open bank accounts. I get discounts on medical and stuff because I'm a resident. And I can get longer term leases at cheaper rates because they know I'm allowed to be here for these times. So it really has gotten a lot more friendly to be a digital nomad, as well as Starlink, like places that didn't have like access to great internet, they can just put Starlink on the roof and you can be in the middle of nowhere and now you're good.
Amazing. You said something when you were talking there. You talked about, COVID, we're all kind of locked up. And so people get that itch and they want to see the world. You've been seeing the world. Tell me some of your, I don't know, some of your best experiences, maybe a couple of stories about for you seeing the world and what it's been like.
Yeah. So even during COVID, I kind of traveled a little bit. I had friends who were about to start a charter business on their catamaran in the Bahamas. And I met them in my marina. They were docked there for a summer. And so I actually got to go and stay at anchor on a 50-foot catamaran and work remotely with them. They were also digital nomads because this whole experience was to scout out the area before they launched after COVID to do the charters. And so, yeah, like I got to stay on a catamaran, like on floating crystal water, wake up every morning and seeing like dolphins swimming around the boat. You could just hop in the water and swim with dolphins. And then spent the day working on my laptop. Back then, Starlink was still not a thing yet. So I always have a hotspot, like a global hotspot that runs on SIM cards, and we would get local SIM cards and work like that. And that worked okay. So that was a good experience and also we were isolated from people, right? Like we're on anchor, just a couple people on this big boat, and we would go to shore and there were a couple restaurants open, not a whole lot, but Bahamas, the Exumas at the time was like all to ourselves because usually there's 300 to 400 boats in that anchorage. And at that time, I think there was maybe like 80. So it was just like you had the whole place to yourself. So that comes to mind for like COVID experience. And then since then, some of the most memorable experiences is one is Vietnam, the north, doing the Hai Giang loop. It's called the Hai Loop. So it's a 4-day motorcycle trip through the northern mountains of Vietnam. And it goes all the way up to the Chinese border. And it's just this one big loop. And so you show up in the middle of the night. I was trying to find my hostel and then the streets like 3 in the morning by myself, and like had dogs barking. It was a whole sketchy situation, but I got to my place, and the next morning they give you a motorcycle for the day to get acclimated. And it's like, it's not a full-blown motorcycle. It's got gears, but you don't need to use a clutch. So they give it to you to kind of get a feel for how to ride and stuff. And if you don't want to ride, there were a lot of people that would just hire a guide, right? And it was just a dude on a bike, and you would sit on the back, and you do the Haizheng loop like that. So if you're not comfortable riding, you could do that. But they would put us into groups of like 10, and then we go, and everything was planned out. Like it was like 255 miles over the 4 days. But it's like all these super cool mountainous roads and like through the north, and like the views were absolutely stunning. And like the very first place we stayed in is like in the middle of nowhere countryside, like almost like a barn with like a second floor where we all just slept on the floor like side by side in 2 different rooms. And then on the first floor there was like a little kitchen and a little like living area with 1 light bulb, and they put out a huge spread of food for us. And they had 1 karaoke machine, and in Vietnam karaoke is huge. And they all got us a little bit drunk on like the local moonshine. So we were all just like singing karaoke through, till like 1 in the morning, then waking up like not feeling like riding another 8 hours through the mountains, but we all got through it. And then, we had a couple more nights just like that where they had planned stops and these little countryside towns and stuff. And like you felt like you're on the Tour de France because you're like going through these little Vietnamese villages in the north. And the most northern part of Vietnam is very rural and it's not too developed. And you see like kids helping farming the land and like moving cattle and stuff, and like they're high-fiving you as you go through the village and stuff on your bike. Like they don't see a lot of people like foreigners in their area other than on motorcycles. So second day, 8 hours of driving, and then staying in another place, and just beautiful mountains of the north, and just how amazing it was to like see, because the north of Vietnam, like outside of Hanoi, is very rural, and there just a lot of rice fields and farming. So you see kids like helping out with farming, like pushing herds of cattle through the streets, and they're this tall, and yeah, just some amazing experiences, just seeing like the nature and all of that. We went up to the Chinese border, checked that out, and over those 4 days it was just like an incredible experience. I will say that it was like way colder than I expected because it was like the north and the mountains, and when you come to Southeast Asia, you don't pack like gloves and jackets and stuff. So every chance we got when we stopped anywhere, we're all buying like more layers because none of us brought the warm enough clothes for this trip. And it was exhausting. Like after the 4 days, I just like booked a really nice hotel and like just slept for like 2 days, but like incredible trip. And it was really cool to see just the nature of northern Vietnam.
That's amazing. And it's, a place like Vietnam you don't think of too often. It's not high on a lot of people's tourist destinations. So it's cool that as a digital nomad, you're able to go there and experience it, experience the people, and get to do a fantastic, adventure through the mountains on motorbikes.
Yeah, no, it's like, and it's like not for everyone, I will say. Like it's a little bit more gritty, and like you've got to be a little bit resilient, and a little. You should probably be an avid traveler before you start with Vietnam, because even with like the language and stuff, it's a little bit challenging. It was the hardest place, even at the airport. Took 3 hours to clear immigration. And like it was just chaos, and no one knew what was going on. There was very little English even in the airport, and they wanted like US dollars as a fee. And like, luckily I'm an American and I always have some emergency US dollars. But there were other people there that like, how are we going to pay these fees? And they wanted US dollars. Like, so I was actually giving out US dollars to other people, and they were like Venmoing me money and stuff. But yeah, it's a different one. And like just crossing the street in the city in Vietnam is like, it's a little terrifying. Like you've seen probably videos or like Anthony Bourdain or whatever, and like just the packs of motorcycles
Oh
that are
yeah,
just everywhere. And like the
incredible.
only way to cross the street is just go and pray. And like they don't hit you. It works. But like that's the only like strategy. It's you just kind of leapfrog your way through this, and it's a little terrifying, but
Just say a
it's a
prayer
very
and
cool
go.
place. It
Amazing.
works out every time. They know how to maneuver around people that are trying to cross the street, but there's not going to be like a time where they're all stopped and there's a crosswalk.
Yeah, it's not happening. Gotcha. Wow, amazing. What are some of the challenges that you have as a digital nomad? What would you say would be the toughest part?
Well, internet sometimes, like you might have just experienced, you just don't know what you're gonna get, and sometimes you're in the middle of a call and you get something drops, like so, and it's gotten a lot better than it used to be, but um, it's still a challenge in some countries where the internet is not as good as home, of course. So that's a big one. And there's ways of looking for accommodations and that have good internet that I do. So booking.com is my number one place to book like hotels and apartments. And there's a place for the people to rate the Wi-Fi on its own. So that's
Interesting.
a great place to start. Airbnb now allows the host to hook up the Airbnb app and test their internet and post it on their site. And if it's not posted and you really like a place, search the reviews for internet Wi-Fi. Make sure if it's bad or good, people are going to write about it. And if you can't find anything, message the host ahead of time and say, hey, can you test the speed? Take a screenshot, send it to me. So that's definitely a challenge. Another challenge is like sometimes it can be lonely if you're solo traveling on the road, but it's really as much effort that you're putting into. I oftentimes, if I find myself being lonely, it's because I'm just like staying at home and I'm not getting out the door and like going to a co-working for the day, or like going out to a time left app like dinner where you book a table with five strangers. And like, so there's plenty of places to meet people. And so you just need to put in that effort. So that's a thing that is a challenge as well. Other than that, I would say like if you travel too fast, if you travel a lot of countries quickly, it's really easy to get burnt out. So I always tell people like start slow, go slow. You want to max out your visas, especially if you're on a tourist visa, and pretty much all your places. Like get in a routine, really absorb the culture, get to know the area where you can walk around and not need Google Maps, and meet locals and have a routine so that you're not on a plane and being jet lagged and like having to block out travel work days to travel and like then changing time zones. Like all that stuff can be very stressful. So going more slow is like the best way to prevent that.
Very good. As you look back over the years that you've been doing this, is there any particular place that comes to mind that if you only had one place that you could go back to, where would it be?
Well, I'm here. It's Bali. I love
Bali.
Bali,
Okay.
and this is my fourth time to Bali. And there's very few places that I would describe as magical. Another places that come to mind is like Vietnam and Peru. Mexico. I really love Mexico. I've spent a lot of time in Mexico as well. There's some really cool places in Mexico. But I do love Bali because the cost of living here is very low. There's most beautiful beaches. It's one of Indonesia's 17,000 islands. So just for those that don't know, and it's about the size of Maryland, the state of Maryland. So it doesn't seem like a lot of distance to get from place to place, but the traffic is like terrible here because the streets are built for like two golf carts. And that's about it. And you got SUVs and tons of scooters and motorbikes and stuff. So it is challenging getting to other parts, but it's not like angry traffic, like New Yorker traffic. Like everyone's chill, no one's honking their horn. We all get through it. So, but I do love Bali for like the locals are like the most friendly, inviting people. They're so amazing. They'll help you out if you need anything. So they're great. Very low cost of living, eating out, laundry, transportation, all that. Even finding places to rent can be, anywhere from $500 a month up. Sky's the limit if you want like a private villa with a private pool and stuff. So, and there's a lot to do here. You have like Ubud, which is like rainforest, and they have a monkey sanctuary there, and they have rice fields and rice terraces, and you can ATV through the jungle, and it's a huge spot for surfers. And then there's also lots of smaller islands off the coast that are pretty cool as well that you can get to by boat. So I've been to probably about 10 or 11 islands in Indonesia, and some of the cool ones like Nusa Penida. There's a very unique beach there, Clinking Beach, that you've probably seen on Instagram. It's like named one of the top beaches in the world. And then you have the Gili Islands, which are like 3 islands and 3 really small islands off the coast here where magic mushrooms just grow out of the ground, and it's like perfectly legal there. Like they just like serve it up in milkshakes at the bar, and everyone goes and watches the sunset, and the sunsets are already amazing on their own.
Throw in some mushrooms and
yeah, it's just a very interesting vibe. No vehicles like allowed, no motorbikes or anything allowed on the island. So you just walk, or if you have a lot of luggage, just like horse and carriage. So it's pretty crazy vibes, like very different vibes from Bali. But I love Bali for so many different reasons, and that's why I'm here. So I'm actually looking at some real estate, maybe buying a place here, and then Airbnb-ing it when I'm gone.
Wow, good for you. What does the future hold for you? What are you thinking?
So I think it looks like continuing to build up the coaching, especially like the program and the community, helping other people become digital nomads is, it's more of a mission. Like it's something that I get excited about. I think I have enough income coming in through my rentals to cover my monthly expenses passively. So this coaching is really all about something that I'm doing that fills a void of helping other people and like more mission based. So I'm really excited about it. I've been doing the one-on-one for about a year and a half, but having a community and having courses to sell, I'm really excited about having that to be able to help people help more people at a much better price point as well. And just being a hybrid nomad, being home on the sailboat in the summer and maybe here in Bali every winter. So that's, as of right now, that's what it's looking like.
Love it. So if someone wants to, is interested and says, "Oh man, I need to learn from Ryan how to be a digital nomad," where can they get in touch with you? How can they find out some more information?
Absolutely. So my website is thedigitalnomadcoach.com. And there they can sign up for a free guide, 7 ways to become a digital nomad. And I talk about all the different ways to nomad, like van life, sailing around the world, being a hybrid nomad like me, staying in a co-living place. So that's free. And then after you get that free guide, you can also book a free 30-minute strategy session with me if you're interested on the coaching, so I can kind of help you figure out a game plan. And also you'll be the first to know once the courses and community are launched, which will be somewhere in March, so coming soon. And then I am the Digital Nomad Coach on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.
Excellent. I am the Digital Nomad Coach. My final question for you, and this has been fascinating. Thank you so much, Ryan, for taking some time and sharing who you are and what you've got going on and just your love for living this lifestyle. I think it's pretty neat. My final question, it's a question I ask everybody on the show, is for you then, what does adventure mean to you?
That's a good one. Adventure is waking up excited about your day, whether it's working at a cool new cafe down the street or like, doing a motorcycle trip through the north of Vietnam or ziplining through the jungles of Costa Rica. I think it's just that excitement that you get with your day of living this type of lifestyle.
Ryan, thank you so much for coming on Journey with Jake.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks so much for having me. It was really good.
Thank you so much to Ryan Mellon for coming on the show and sharing his journey into the world of digital nomadism. It was inspiring to hear how this lifestyle has impacted him personally and how he's now giving back by coaching others who want to embrace the digital nomad life. If you'd like to learn more about Ryan and grab his free guide, 7 Ways to Become a Digital Nomad, head over to thedigitalnomadcoach.com. You can also follow him on Instagram at the Digital Nomad Coach and check out his podcast, Digital Nomad Nation, for more valuable insights. Ryan, thank you once again for sharing your story with all of us. And of course, a huge thank you to all of you for tuning in each week. Your feedback and support truly mean the world to me. If you enjoy the show, it would be amazing if you could take a moment and leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It helps more people discover the show. If not, no worries. I'm just grateful you're here, and I hope you find a bit of enjoyment and maybe even some motivation from each episode. Be sure to join me next week for another great conversation. I'll be speaking with John Cheney, an entrepreneur from my home state of Utah and a talented pianist. We'll dive into his adventures as a musician and entrepreneur. It's a conversation you won't want to miss. Just remember, it's not always about the destination as it is about the journey. Take care, everybody.